Thank you for watching. Well, last weekend was a deadly one on Thunder Bay's waterways, with 3 people confirmed dead from 2 separate drowning incidents. And a longtime OPP sergeant says he's never seen anything like it and calls the weekend a hard one for many. The body of a 32-year-old man was located on Monday morning in Silver Harbor on Lake Superior. The woman he was with at the time also died in hospital. Dennis Ward has more.
Around 10:30 Monday morning, divers from the OPP Underwater Search and Recovery Unit located the body of Kevin Spade. The 32-year-old Sioux Lookout man had been missing since Saturday after he jumped from a cliff into Lake Superior and began having trouble trying to exit the choppy water. Sergeant Dave Moskal of the Thunder Bay OPP says at the time, Spade was with 26-year-old Marlene Fox of Big Trout Lake.
There was a young lady that had gone into the water with Mr. Spade. She was found at the time of the incident, transported to hospital, and has since passed away.
OPP, along with the Canadian Coast Guard and other emergency crews, searched for Spade's body throughout the weekend. Moskal says Lake Superior is unpredictable and believes even the strongest swimmers would have had difficulty with the water conditions at the time. Still, Moskal says everyone was hoping for the best.
Of course, you always suspect, and you always hold on to hope, and we always hold on to hope. We continued the search into darkness the day of the incident. We carried on with the search yesterday, and you always hold hope until you can confirm one way or another what the circumstances are.
The investigation into the 2 deaths is now in the hands of the regional coroner. These are not the first cliff jumping deaths this year. A 26-year-old city man died in June at a popular diving spot near the Mackenzie River. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Drowning tragedies continued in the region as Kenora OPP divers recovered the body of a Manitoba man on Tuesday. At approximately 5 in the evening on Monday, a male failed to resurface after falling off his paddle board on Lake of the Woods. An underwater search and recovery unit was dispatched and found 52-year-old Gary Dewick of Steinbach, Manitoba, the next day around noon. Postmortem was held on Wednesday in Kenora. The province gets it. That's according to Thunder Bay City Councillor Joe Verderamo following the wrap-up of the annual AMO conference. At the forefront of the city's delegation priorities was the gathering was Thunder Bay's proposed event center, mining readiness, and energy concerns. City leaders say that while they receive generally positive responses from provincial cabinet ministers, they will continue to drive home the message that Ontario's future lies here in the north. Nate Jones has more.
It may have taken a while to get the provincial government's ear on many of the important issues for the region. But after the AMO conference in Ottawa, City Councillor Joe Verderamo says things are slowly beginning to move in the right direction.
We talked about Northern Ontario as being an economic engine for government and the potential with the Ring of Fire and the whole mining issue. They agreed. And they agreed that they're working on it and they want to get it right.
The Minister of Economic Development, Trade and Employment said Thunder Bay's mining readiness strategy has set the stage for the future of the industry. There were commitments made by that office to foster a stronger working relationship in the north. Another hot-button issue is the future of the Thunder Bay generating station. Currently, the plan for the generating station is still under review. Verderamo says that although there hasn't been any definitive answer yet, Energy Minister Bob Shearer had some interesting comments.
When I questioned him about the Thunder Bay generating station, I questioned him about the OPA and IES, whatever organization is, and he said, as minister, I can issue a directive. That was surprising to me.
Mayor Keith Hobbs says that the province has also expressed interest in funding and participating in development of the proposed event centre. Judging from past experiences, council believes the best way to move forward is to get the site shovel-ready.
Well, not only the construction jobs to build that event center, but the permanent full-time jobs associated with that, bringing in possibly a hockey team, bringing in those conferences. It's going to be an economic driver for our downtown, for our hotels. You don't get 4 or 5 new hotels built for no reason. There's a reason.
Other issues raised by the delegation included a request for the reassessment of the Resolute paper mill and the lack of social housing in the city. Delegates to the conference say the positive responses they've received should help to ensure the continued growth in the city and across the Northwest. Nate Jones, TBT News.
Mayors from across northwestern Ontario were also on hand for the AMO conference, and they too had a number of concerns they wanted to bring to the attention to the provincial ministers. Heading the list were regional power needs, policing costs, and assessment disputes. Jordan Malani has more.
Greenstone Mayor Ron Beaulieu says he believes the province is committed to developing the north. Following a meeting with the Minister of Energy, Beaulieu says the Little Jackfish River hydroelectric project is being pushed forward as a definite need. Located about 200 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay, he says the province is looking for First Nation support for a private project that is integral towards bringing connections to the north, including transmission lines and road access. Beaulieu says the debate on an east-west corridor versus a north-south corridor is not a question of one over the other, but of what will work best for everybody affected. Sioux Lookout Mayor Dennis Lenny says a meeting with the Minister of Correctional and Youth Services also went well as he continues his fight for a youth detention center in his community.
2012, it was 612 youth convicted, where Fort Frances has only got 42, and all the youth right now are being transported to Fort Frances or Thunder Bay or Kenora. So it makes more sense to keep them in Sioux Lookout as youth detention center because probably 95% of these children would have family in Sioux Lookout.
Lenny adds that standardizing policing costs were also an item of discussion among many in attendance, but his most important discussions were in regards to long-term care beds. The community currently has 20 beds in total and a waiting list 7 years long.
Yeah, our population is 5,500, but our catchment area with the 29 northern reserves is 30,000 people. And we can't say that First Nations can't be using it because our hospital is the hub of the north and everybody comes there. So we have to look after all of the north.
Dryden Mayor Craig Nuttall says a meeting to discuss the MPAC assessment at the Domtar Mill lasted more than 2.5 hours. He says regional mayors who have stuck together through their fight against recent property assessment reductions have now been deemed the mill assessment group. He adds while they may not get everything that they want, Nuttall believes they will get something.
The government's working really good with us, and I think some major changes have to be done with impact. And as far as we're concerned, we have no money to pay back, so we're hoping that the forestry companies realize that.
Jordan Malani, TVT News.
An investigation is underway following a train pedestrian fatality this week in Hudson, west of Sioux Lookout. OPP were called around 10 o'clock on Monday evening following reports that a person had been struck by a train. 47-year-old Arnold DeRuin of Sioux Lookout was pronounced dead at the scene. The OPP and CN Rail Police are investigating. Thunder Bay's 2 MPs are fired up over the Prime Minister's decision to request to prorogue Parliament to the Governor General. Many are calling it a distraction tactic as Harper is still under fire over the Senate expenses scandal. Nate Jones reports.
There will be a new throne speech in the fall. Obviously, the House will be prorogued in anticipation of that.
It's a move that Harper has used before. The announcement came Monday while the Prime Minister was in Whitehorse on a tour of the Northern Territories. Right now, the next sitting of the House is set for September 16th. But if the Governor General gives the nod to Harper's plan to prorogue the Parliament, MPs won't be back until October. Local MP Bruce Heyer has long been a critic of Harper's agenda. He intends to ask the Governor General not to prorogue the House and to take it a step further and dissolve the government.
The Governor General is a conservative, but he's also a man of integrity, and I hope this time he'll do the right thing. He'll say no to the bully. He'll make Mr. Harper take accountability for what has transpired, and for better or for worse, let's get back to work on September 16th.
Many believe this is an attempt by the Conservative leadership to stall and somewhat distract Canadians from the Senate scandals. Some believe it could be the Prime Minister's office taking a break to refocus in time for a throne speech in the fall. Thunder Bay Rainy River MP John Rafferty says Harper's track record with prorogation is suspect.
The last time, of course, everyone remembers, which was to avoid the government falling, and we were prorogued for a couple of months, and so Canadians just simply don't trust Mr. Harper to be doing it for the right reasons.
Whether the Senate scandals will affect the Conservatives' grip on the government remains to be seen. Both Heyer and Rafferty believe that Canadians are suspicious of Harper's motives and that the truth will be told in the numbers. Nate Jones, TVT News.
OPP and Kenora are on the lookout for an escaped prisoner. Police say the man managed to get away on Tuesday morning while being transported to the Kenora courthouse. He's been identified as 53-year-old Harvey Smith of the White Dog First Nation. Kenora OPP, along with Treaty 3 police, are also investigating a fatal single vehicle accident that occurred on Wednesday afternoon. Police say the vehicle left the roadway on Lakeshore Drive near the Cameron Bay Bridge and sank into Lake of the Woods. Officers, with the help of motorists at the scene, were able to pull the driver from the vehicle. He was pronounced dead after being transported to hospital. The victim has been identified as 48-year-old Robert Chisel of Kenora. The North of Dryden document was released earlier this week, and the energy plan for the Northwest is being applauded by regional politicians. That story is next. Welcome back. The Minister of Northern Development and Mines is praising a recently released energy plan for the Northwest. The North of Dryden document lays out ways to power the Ring of Fire in First Nation communities. Michael Gravelle says it's the first time a real plan has been brought forward to get remote communities off diesel. As Dennis Ward reports, even critics of the government see it as a recognition of the region's energy needs.
Development and Mines Minister Michael Gravelle says the North of Dryden Energy Plan is a recognition of the needs for the Ring of Fire, other mining developments, and far north communities. Gravelle says finally, after so many years, a plan is in place to get at least 21 remote communities off of diesel.
It's not just a cost-saving measure, although it's a significant one. It really is about quality of life and the ability for the First Nations to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we know they want to do.
Timmins James Bay NDP MPP Jill Bisong believes the North of Dryden plan is a recognition of what local politicians have been saying for some time.
We know that we don't have the connection from northeastern Ontario to the northwest to be able to supply that electricity as demand goes up. We also know that OPG and others are starting to agree with the plan that's been done here locally, that in fact the amount of energy needed is actually going to increase. So what we need to do is prepare for that. If we are going to be able to benefit from the natural resources of our region, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to be able to make that work.
The local energy task force has said the energy plan is proof the Ontario Power Authority is finally listening, but felt that recognition has taken too long, something Gravelle says he gets.
I certainly understand the expression of some frustration by the Northwest Energy Task Force, but from my perspective, this is just all good news. We're seeing a true recognition on a grand scale of what needs to happen to make sure we meet the energy needs in Northern Ontario and perhaps most specifically in Northwestern Ontario.
The first phase of the plan calls for new transmission lines to Red Lake and Pickle Lake at a cost of nearly $300 million. How that will be financed is not yet clear, but Gravelle says the need for energy is clear and there's a commitment to address it. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
It's a classic dilemma trying to balance untouched nature, cottagers, and development. Karen Pauls reports on a battle that's heating up in northwestern Ontario at the site of a famous old lodge.
This is the Canadian Shield, just east of the Manitoba-Ontario border. The Canadian National Railway built a rustic but luxurious resort here in 1914. But decades later, Menaki Lodge no longer attracted the same clientele. Numerous owners lost money, and then the lodge burned down in a suspicious fire 10 years ago.
That's absolutely beautiful over there.
Now, two Manitoba businessmen want to develop the site, convert remaining hotel rooms into 56 condo units, and build 96 new cottages.
What we're looking to do is to put something together that's going to be sustainable, but will also be really responsible to the local environment.
Well, all you have to do is take a look.
Alex Rowe has lived and worked here all of his life. He says the development is too big.
There's far too many people that they're going to try and bring in here, and when you put that concentration of boats in such a small area, accidents are bound to happen.
The Cottagers Association has raised more than $100,000 to hire their own experts. They found problems with the lodge's original sewage treatment plant.
Both of the engineers concluded that the densities proposed by the developer would overrun the plant.
This is the Winnipeg River, and this is the sewage treatment plant the residents are worried won't be able to manage the number of people the developer is planning for. If raw sewage spills out of there, it flows downstream all the way to Lake Winnipeg, already considered one of the dirtiest lakes in Canada.
The original lodge sat kind of wrapped around the traffic circle here, and now they're proposing at least one row of cottages.
If this proposal goes through, this will be a view you won't see anymore.
It will be gone.
The developers hope to have a decision soon so they can have shovels in the ground next spring. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Menaki, Ontario.
With more than $14,000 in unpaid taxes, the Dryden mission hopes they'll be approved for tax exemption to help with plans for expansion. The mission recently approached Dryden City Council to inform them of the situation and to explain why they won't be paying their tax bill. Jordan Milani has a story.
Pastor Jim Shearer has been operating the Dryden mission out of its current location for the past 2 years. Working out of a donated building on Van Horn Avenue, the mission strives to help those less fortunate by taking in donations and selling those items in a thrift store setting. Shearer recently approached Dryden Council to inform them of an application to MPAC that would exempt the mission of more than $14,000 in taxes. He hopes to use the money that they would be saving to finish much-needed bathroom renovations and more.
With the bathrooms, that's going to open up a whole new avenue of what we can actually offer on the main floor here. And we can open it up for some evening programs that we want to do with a lot with addiction kind of stuff and just some family gatherings and a little bit more volunteer gatherings that we can do.
Shearer says the mission's goal is to create a family within the community, offering support for one another in a variety of ways. Currently, the mission offers programs such as Narcotics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, relational counseling, and they even go as far as sending donations to Africa several times a year.
Next summer, we want to be able to build a kitchen. And so with the kitchen, we want to be able to open it up in the fall of 2014 as a cafe. And with that cafe, the revenue that we create, if there's some available with that, we want to be able to put that towards the men's shelter here at the Dryden Mission.
Shearer also discussed issues with residents dropping off garbage in their donations, causing the mission to incur additional landfill costs on top of their own. Dryden Mayor Craig Nuttall says the discussion will go to the Finance Committee, which will need to consult with MPAC to ensure the right decision is made.
Personally, I look at it this way. They have a thrift store there. They take in revenue. They're a little different than a church because a church only has a bazaar, say, once a year. They have an ongoing business over there, so it would be up to MPAC to figure out whether or not they qualify.
Jordan Milani, TVT News.
The long-standing chief in Gamogaming First Nation has been re-elected for her fourth straight two-year term. Chief Celia Eacham defeated her challenger by a landslide 194-60 vote on August 21st. She says the community will continue to invest in its most important asset, its people. For her next term, she plans to address infrastructure needs and housing to accommodate young families in the community and single parents living in overcrowded conditions. The Atikokan Bass Classic was another success. We have the details coming up after the break. It's 26 years and counting for the Atikokan Bass Classic, and the event continues to draw huge crowds. 110 professional and amateur angler teams hit the lake this past weekend, all vying for the top prize of $10,000. But as Jordan Milani tells us, it's the overwhelming community support that really keeps the competitors coming back every year.
1861 yesterday. Look at.
It's been called the funnest bass tournament in Ontario, and for good reason. Great bass fishing and a big party to end it all off. Nearly 1,000 Atikokanites gathered under the big tent on Saturday for weigh-ins that would eventually crown the 2013 Bass Classic champions. 110 teams set out to catch the top 10 fish over a 2-day span that saw great weather, plenty of action, and a few good laughs. Kevin Rissanen, a former winner of the Classic, found himself swimming with the fishes after he caught a snag and lost his balance at Marmion Lake.
We didn't really have much going on anyway, so we weren't too concerned. I mean, we both laughed for about 2 hours afterwards, not to mention the fact that I'm in the water and I still have a snag.
Bob Richardson, a fishing pro out of Illinois, has attended the Classic for the last 5 years, filming an episode of his own TV show titled Outdoors in the Heartland. He says the level of competition continues to rise each year, and word is getting out on just how popular the tournament has become.
It takes the town people, it takes the crowd, and what gets me is there's 110 boats here. I started in it 5 or 6 years ago and was the biggest, fastest bass boat on a tournament trail here. Now we see all kind of Rangers, all kind of Tritons, all kind of Skeeters. You know, there's probably 25 big bass boats in this tournament.
Despite the heavy competition, Richardson says local anglers have managed to knock him out of contention in recent years, and this time was no different. Beginning day 2 in 7th place, the local father-son duo of Todd and Steve Brick from Atikokan say everything just seemed to fall into place as they came out on top of the field with more than 38 pounds of bass to take the crown.
It was just amazing, right? I teach here in Atikokan and I see all the kids and
in the crowd, and they're all cheering me on, and they all wish me luck beforehand, so it's just basically a picture-perfect ending, right?
I always wanted to do it with my boy, and now we have.
The weather held for us. We had just absolutely wonderful fishing. And, I'm kind of emotional right now because of Todd and Steve. They won it, and you could see that guy, Toddy, tearing up on the stage when he finally knew that he won. And I'm so happy inside.
Jordan Milani, TBT News.
Moviegoers in the Dryden area will need to find other options to watch the newest blockbusters now that the Sunset Drive-In and Cinema 86 movie theaters are closing. The once popular drive-in was in operation during the summer of 2012, but was unable to start up again due to this year's late spring. Now, more than halfway through the summer, Cinema 86, the city's lone movie theater, will also be closing its doors. David Burns-Prouty has operated the two facilities for a year and says now is the time to reevaluate. The two facilities are still using 35mm projectors, an aging technology that Prouty says makes getting the newest films in a timely fashion a challenge. Despite the difficulties of the industry, he hopes this will not be the end of his film career and says the entire experience has been very rewarding.
I managed to step out of a few of my comfort zones, watching scary movies and things like that, which I've never usually ever watched, but the appreciation for them, just the scores that they have, like the music, the editing, it's just all pretty incredible when you see it all, when you get to see it consistently.
Prouty says he wants to thank the building clientele that supported both the theater and the drive-in, adding there are already talks that the drive-in could be back in operation for next summer under new management. That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.